Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker and today is our next player interview on the channel. I had the absolute pleasure to sit down with the first ever Disney Lorcana Challenge champion, Frank Karstan, who took first place at the DLC in Lille. It was fascinating to get to sit down and talk to Frank, who is very experienced in the TCG world. The interview goes on for quite a while, so I'm going to stop yapping and introduce you to Frank Karstan! It was fascinating to get to sit down and have a chat with Frank, who is very experienced in the TCG world. The interview goes on quite a bit, so I'm going to stop yapping and introduce you to the first ever Disney Lorcana Challenge Champion of the World, Frank Karstan! And as promised, here is the man, the myth, the legend, the man that has cemented his name in Disney Lorcana history, the first ever Disney Lorcana champion, courtesy of Lille. We are joined by Frank Karstan. Thank you so much for joining me, Frank. I have so much that I want to talk to you about, so many different topics. Oh no, you are so welcome. It is my pleasure. So many things that I want to get through. So we are going to dive straight into it. But what I want to start off with is, I've said before that you were a new name to me in TCG. I never played Magic the Gathering. It wasn't anything that I got into, but as you were making your way through Top Cut, I was slowly learning more and more about the history of Frank Karstan. So for anyone that might be watching that also doesn't have that back knowledge, in as many or as few words as you like, could you just bring us up to date with your history in TCG?
So my main history lies indeed with Magic the Gathering. That's the game that I've played for over 20 years now. Which is crazy to say, like over half of my life. And I competed at the tournament circuit for Magic for many years. Did well at the various Pro Tours and World Championships. Ultimately was inducted into the so-called Hall of Fame of that game.
Amazing.
Most fierce competitors all time. And in addition, I also have like a bit of an academic background in math, specifically game theory and probability theory, and I've written a lot of articles throughout my Magic career on basically the mathematical analysis of that game. I have also started doing that a little bit in Lorcana as well, which is great fun for me. Nowadays, I do not play as much Magic anymore as I once did, but I am mainly involved with the game by writing articles for various websites about Magic on the strategy or analysis of the metagame, and I also support event coverage of large Magic events, and that's already a big enough background in TCGs. But yeah, now I've also added Lorcana as an awesome additional game to sink my teeth in, and yeah, it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, I would say so. What a way to make your debut into a new card game. That's super interesting. There's a couple of points I want to pick from that. I'm super interested in like the math sort of stuff, like the probabilities, and I imagine that rabbit hole goes deeper than my current level of understanding, but it sounds so fascinating on like a very base level. So my history is Yu-Gi-Oh! That was my TCG history when I was only young, about 9 or 10 years old, watching the show, getting a starter deck, playing with your friends, and then slowly taking it more and more seriously, traveling to tournaments. I went to America to play. It's the only time I've ever been to America was to spend a weekend in a big leisure centre and play Yu-Gi-Oh! So I took it really seriously, and I would by no means say that I was any sort of math genius, not by a long stretch, but math was a subject that I struggled with, and just through playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I found myself naturally getting a little bit better at, like, again, it's maybe specific types of math, but obviously, like, for those that don't know, in Yu-Gi-Oh! The point of the game is to take away all your opponent's life points, which is only 8,000. So you do a lot of subtracting, and it's generally in multiples of 500, 1,600, 2,500 for different characters. And again, this is very base level stuff, full full admittance. But I just naturally became a little bit better of like doing these quick mental math sums. And I imagine the deeper you go, and again, I don't know Magic the Gathering, but I imagine it's kind of just a consequence of becoming a professional TCG player that you get all these extra kind of like, maybe, yeah, I suppose life skills is the way to put it. Would you say that's a fair reflection?
Yeah. The way of thinking in card games also applies to, well, pretty much anything in life. It's just thinking logically about what the best move can be, and that type of thinking is useful anywhere. Yeah, your history with Yu-Gi-Oh, as you described, how you started. Yeah, that reminds me of how I started with Magic as well back in the days. You know, playing at local stores, like qualifying for a bigger tournament, and somehow running it through. I do believe that TCGs in general, and even Lorcana for which is perhaps a bit more suitable for younger players, can help kids improve their math skills in general. So it is very valuable in that regard. The types of analysis that I tend to do when I look more at, I don't know, like the hypergeometric probabilities for analyzing consistency of certain cards, or I don't know, figuring out uninkable counts or stuff like that. Gets a bit more involved, but it's a really awesome application. And speaking of the Yu-Gi-Oh, damage counts in Magic, we are, and it Magic is somewhat similar to Lorcana in the sense that well, you start with 20 life. The sizes of creatures in that game are, also like 2/2 and 3/3, similar to what we see in Lorcana. So there are like many similarities between the two games. I do remember a while ago for the Cardmarket channel, I for their Yu-Gi-Oh channel, I did a video Staple or Stinker, where I was presented with like a couple of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, even though yeah, I knew the game existed, but I had never really played it, hadn't really seen the cards. And the first time I saw the damage numbers, indeed in the thousands, I just had to laugh because it's like so far removed from what we're used to in Magic. Just slapping on some zeros on there, but it's also a great game from what I saw. There's just so many good games and only so little time to spend. But
yeah, that's the problem. It's one heck of an investment of, like, even if you set aside like the money investment for like paper, then just your time, like if you really want to get like to the top level of play, then I think for a majority of people it is going to like demand a certain amount of like just time and like life energy in general. I mean, some people are more natural than others, which we'll get to, because from what I understand, you didn't have the most amount of testing time before Lille, or is that completely inaccurate? How much testing do you think you did before Lille?
No, that is true. I think that that my experience in Magic was a big help, because like the same way of thinking in analyzing board states, figuring out the role you want to have in a matchup, analyzing combat, understanding like the fundamentals of
resource management
of a resource system. Absolutely. Those things definitely help. So in a sense, I've been preparing for 20 years.
Yes, absolutely.
But when it came to Lorcana specifically, I I started with the game right as it came out, because it just seemed like a fun game with simple design, elegant rules, but deep strategic complexity, which was a nice combination. But most of what I've played so far was actually limited. So sealed deck, where you just have to build a deck with the resources you're given and think on your feet in the games, which was a really good way of actually like understanding your gameplay fundamentals. For example, when to quest, when to challenge, that kind of stuff. I I had played bits of Constructed here and there, mostly in person, but yeah, not much. Honestly, like this year before Lille, I'd only played several dozens of games of Constructed.
Hmm.
Though I do think I used my preparation time like in the best way possible,
Hmm.
because I didn't just, I don't know, jam games on Pixelborn, but rather met up with some other local players where we played several games with just open hands, not with the intent of like really
Actually
winning,
playing.
but yeah, like discussing every single decision in the game,
Gotcha.
right? How do you mulligan here? What would you ink here, and why?
Hmm. Hmm.
How are we sequencing this over the next few turns? What are the key interactions to look for? And really to just work together, find optimal lines of play, and learn from each other, because there are so many little decisions in games of Lorcana, and everyone has like a useful different perspective on how they approach the game, and by testing in that way with other experienced players, I think that was a great help.
Yeah.
So not a lot of quantity of games beforehand, but good quality.
I'm in a testing group on Discord where, similar to what you just described, we would have an opening hand from a game, screenshot, and just post it in the Discord and be like, what do you keep here? What do you throw? And then, even if that person's finished the game, we could still be talking about this opening hand like 5 hours later, just because people have got different ideas of what of lines you could take. And that has been invaluable to me, just in learning, okay, like, not just, okay, I'm wrong here, but why am I wrong? Or not even necessarily
Exactly.
wrong, but why is this not the only move? Why should I be looking at different lines? And it just opens your mind to different lines of play. So no, as you say, I think the quality of testing over the quantity, but I do think there's a lot to be said for what you said a moment ago. In a way, you've been prepping for Lille for 20 years. Like you say, again, it is a different game, but like I remember picking up Lorcana, and again, it had been a long time since I'd played Yu-Gi-Oh! But some of those like skills that I learnt were still there, like you say, resource management and the intricacies of, do I quest here or do I challenge, which obviously isn't the same as Yu-Gi-Oh! But again, just weighing up the pros and cons, and do I need to give up this character just for one lore? Is that one quest going to cost me the entire game? Is playing this one drop going to cost me the entire game? Because again, then you need to think of your inking. I honestly think it's so incredibly deep, and we're only 4 sets in, so hats off to Ravensburger. Moving along to talk about Lille in a bit more detail then. So you ran Steel Song. Now I'm going to put my hands up straight away and say that the like 2 or 3 weeks running into Lille, I was pretty consistently saying that I didn't think Steel Song or Sapphire Steel were going to have very good runs, because I just thought Ruby Sapphire just has, in my opinion, and please if I'm wrong, I'd love to hear it, but I just felt Ruby Sapphire had such strong matchups into those two decks and was going to be so prominent that I felt like it was going to be kept at bay. Of course, there's something to be said for the rock, paper, scissors of like, yes, but then you've got green steel, which is also going to be very popular. So if talk me through what led to your deck choice in Lille of Steel Song, and if I'm wrong, I'd love to hear why I was wrong. I would love to be educated myself through this conversation.
No, I think generally speaking, your analysis of matchups is spot on. The main reason why I settled on Steel Song was that, well, I had some prior experience with it. It was
Mm-hmm.
the deck I first picked up when the game came out, because, well, I was attracted by the interaction between Ariel, Spectacular Singer, and A Whole New World.
Mm-hmm.
Really powerful. And then later on, we also got Cinderella to let the Storm Rage on, another very powerful combination. So I liked the raw power of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
I had some prior experience with it, and I also liked the gameplay, specifically of the version that I made, which was a little bit more aggressive. I added like a bunch of like Mr. Smees and
Mm-hmm.
piglets to quest quickly, And
Piglet was
but
the MVP. Sorry to cut you off, but on
oh yeah,
commentary, I was so happy about this Piglet. I was like, this is the MVP. I can't wait to see how far this little Piglet can go. But yeah, please continue your build.
yeah. I watched some of the games from the top eight, and yeah, like it was great to see or hear your commentary and excitement about it.
Of course.
I shared it as well. Um, yeah, it's just a character that can quest for a whole lot of lore, which allows you to get over the Ruby Sapphire decks before they even have a chance to play Be Prepared.
Hmm.
And I just liked it better than some alternatives like going all in on Sleepy's Flute or Pride Lands, because those are uninkable and can be pretty bad in certain matchups, especially when you're on the draw and behind in the lore race from the get-go. Piglet can at least be ink in those situations, whereas well, questing for three at a time can do a lot of work. So I like that, and I think it gave me a bit more of an improvement against the Ruby Sapphire decks,
Yeah, for
even
sure.
though it is still difficult. And
Yeah.
I think you're completely right in that. But it wasn't so much a metagame call. Although I still felt, well, there's some good matchups, some bad matchups. It positioned okay, but rather a matter of choosing a deck with the cards I liked the most that had raw power and where I had some experience and I enjoyed just the type of gameplay. It played to my strengths, and I enjoy such like aggressively oriented decks way more than the slow, grindy control game that say a Ruby Sapphire would present.
I see. I like that because I'm the same but the opposite. So like you basically you played the meta to a degree, but you played to your strengths. And I have been a Ruby Amethyst control main since the very beginning of the game. It started off I was just drawn to I get to run a lot of villains, Gaston. I get to run the Queen. I get to run Maleficent and stuff. But then obviously learning, oh okay, this is actually one of the more kind of skill set decks, and like there's a lot of moving pieces, and I quite enjoyed the very long Ruby Amethyst mirror matches of chapter 1. To my sins, I've been told I'm insane by a lot of people, I understand this, but I personally enjoyed it. But again, my point being, I just know that deck so well. I know the matchups. Again, they change with every set, but with every set it's always been the deck that I've spent the most time relearning how these matchups play. So I think it would take a lot for me to choose to not run that deck, just because I think my ability with that deck and my skill set with that deck should hopefully give me the push I need to like go through 9 rounds of Swiss and a top cut. And again, sometimes you have to think about that bit of luck you need, whether it is just because of the RNG of the game or favourable pairings. But I think I fancy my chances with a deck I know the best in a 50-50 matchup, rather than playing something that has, say, a 70-30 split, but I am not as practiced with the deck and more likely to make mistakes. So I'm glad you said that. I think there's a lot to be said for, yes, think about the meta, but absolutely play for your strengths. You said that you think Ruby Sapphire was it your worst matchup, or is there something worse than that for Steel Song, or is that as bad as it gets? Oh, basically the question is, what is your worst and your best matchups with that deck? So
yeah, probably that is my worst matchup. Although I may not even have played against like every possible color pair that exists. The Emerald decks seem to be fairly good matchups when I play them. But yeah, in the end, familiarity with the deck counts for a lot, and it's also quite nice that the game supports these different play styles. Even if we're like completely different in that, we can both have a deck that we can enjoy, and that leads to fun matches when they face off.
That's great. Are there any significant moments you can remember from your run, like as just small, interesting stories, whether it was a significant top deck or a misplay perhaps from you, which you were able to then not be punished by, or maybe something an opponent did? Or is there any specific moments that you can recall from your run, whether in Swiss or Top Cut?
Oh, I think I did a lot of misplays, largely due to kind of the lack of reps with the deck, where I just I don't know, did not anticipate commonly played cards that my opponent then played on the next turn and wrecked me, and I was like, probably should have figured out that that was coming, or like having a plan in my mind for the turn, making a play, then deciding, oh well, that was bad, and then yeah, the important thing is not to compound on a mistake, but just reset and just make the best of it from that point onward. One play that I do remember that was quite fun was a game where I was like completely behind, in danger of losing on the next turn. But then I recognized that my opponent had drawn a lot of cards in that game. Counted their library. Well, it was exactly 14 cards. So I was like, okay, so one
library is deck in Magic, right?
Yeah, yes.
Cool. Just checking. I thought so, but just for the sake of people at home that might not know, yeah. So they have 14 cards in their deck.
Then I was like, well, then one out is just playing a whole new world and then drawing another whole new world, and so let's just go for that. And sure enough, it was there on top of the deck, and I managed to win a game where I thought I had no chance anymore. So that's also a matter of recognizing how to play to my outs.
Yeah.
But I was also quite fortunate that the cards were there for me when I needed them, and had some good matchups along the way.
Yeah, I mean, like, you take the good with the bad at the end of the day. I'm sure there were also a lot of games where you missed exactly what you needed. So, again, it's the RNG of our game. I have to ask, with that situation where you milled them out, was there a moment where, like, they were like, okay, I've won this, and then you were like, can I count your deck? And they were like, oh, no. Or do you think they were aware that that was an out that you might play to? I'm just envisioning that moment, because I would panic.
I think they were aware that it was going to be a thing. Though I'm not sure they knew that it was like exactly 14 cards. Which I mean, if they had like one more card in their whole deck, then well, maybe it would have gone different.
So you're saying DeCandio had it right all along, play like 65 cards. Perfect.
I am not saying that, but I will confirm that there could be valid reasons for going slightly beyond 60 cards if milling is a popular strategy in the format.
Yeah, 100%. Outside of winning the tournament, what did you think about the event overall? Do you feel like it was run well? Did you generally have fun outside of, obviously, you won, so that's about as good a weekend as anyone would have had. But again, putting that aside, what did you think of the event?
I thought it was excellent. Like the venue was spacious and nicely decorated. The staff were all amazing. And like all of my opponents were skilled and friendly and coming from all over Europe. Like I've played against players from Spain, from Italy, France, England, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands. It's like the entirety of Europe came together to celebrate the love of the game Lorcana. So the overall atmosphere was amazing. After the promos, the participation promos were handed out, almost everyone just kept playing because, well, we came to just enjoy the game, and that was an excellent experience overall. And yeah, I look forward to future editions.
Moving back into Lorcana gameplay then, but away from Lille, but just Lorcana as a game. Lille was the first event where we used the best of, well, I was about to say best of two, but that's not accurate. It's 2 game formats throughout Swiss rounds. Now, there's lots of different opinions from people about this. Some people feel very passionately one way or the other, and I respect every opinion as long as it's done so kindly, without attacking those that have a different one. What are your thoughts on 2 game format?
So my opinion is not going to be that passionately. Basically, I'm open to the idea. I can see some of the advantages of the two game system because it alleviates the impact of play and draw.
Yeah.
Also, you won't have to wait as often for game trees in another table when your match was fast. So you spend more time playing.
Yeah.
And these are fine advantages. It does mathematically incentivize decks with more polarized matchups or like a small play draw disparity because then you have a higher chance of going 2-0, which currently comes with a bonus point. I am not particularly fond of that bonus point, and I think just removing it altogether would lead to a superior implementation. But on the whole, the two-game system is an okay option as far as I'm concerned. I don't feel like if the bonus point were removed, then I don't have a strong preference between best of two or best of three.
That would be your main feedback, just that extra bonus point is what maybe makes it not such a great idea.
Yeah, I think it just adds awkward incentives that are not necessary, and also introduces unnecessary variance. But the two-game system also comes with an interesting decision, like if you win the die roll, do you want to play or draw in the very first game? There are also many different opinions on that. When I won the die roll, I typically just played first in the first game of the match because I thought that the value of information of what my opponent is playing is more valuable on the draw. When in game one, like I just have like a proactive game plan. I'm mulligan into the same hand when I'm on the play, basically regardless of what my opponent is playing. But if I'm on the draw, then I'm behind the lore race from the get-go. Might need to be more reactive, and I need to find and mulligan for the right reactive cards for the matchup. So that's how I approached it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would always choose to go first. Again, like you say, there are some different opinions on it, but for what it's worth, I share Frank's sentiments. The other big hot topic that has been on and off really since Lorcana began, but I think is very prominent discourse at the moment, is talking about a potential ban list. So I haven't said my opinion on this yet. I've been sort of teasing it. My thought is that I don't need anything to be banned. So obviously I'm talking about Bucky more than anything. Let's not beat around the squirrel. Bucky is a card that a lot of people are really not happy with at the moment. And my issue is that I don't think Bucky is the problem. I feel like it's just that we don't have enough answers to Bucky at the moment. That is where my problem lies. We need something like a 2-drop Lady Tremaine that only works for like characters with 1 strength. Something like that. Something that can still be played around. So like, again, because like we do have a couple of cards in both Amethyst and Steel, like Triton's Decree, where your opponent chooses a character for 2 damage to go on. But all you need is a 1-drop, and then that is never hitting the Bucky. So I feel like we need a bit more than that, but I still want Bucky to be playable. He needs to be a bit more manageable. But I would love to hear your thoughts on, if you've got opinions about Bucky, then great. But just the concept of a ban list in general, is there anything that you think deserves to be in that conversation? And then perhaps even your thoughts on if it should be more set rotation as opposed to ban list. Just your opinion on that discourse.
Prior to set 4, I don't think a ban list would be necessary because the metagame seemed very balanced and diverse, with a lot of different strategies all being able to compete at the highest level, with win rates being around like the 50-50 mark throughout, which is actually great. And if that's the case, when there's no dominant strategy that is impossible to answer, then I don't see a need for bans. With set 4, Bucky, for example, is one of the cards that has become a bit of an issue, is my understanding. Specifically, as you described, there's no answers to it. If those did exist, then there would be no problem. I guess we will see at the upcoming tournaments how bad it really is. But yeah, if you have like a major threat that is seeing a lot of play, where there is no good answer to it, then that could be a problem. Um, I always think, well, give creative deck builders some time to find the answer. Give some time for the metagame to potentially stabilize, because even if there's perhaps no obvious great answer, well, maybe like a certain strategy is well positioned against the discard decks. If it would come to a point where, I don't know, Bucky decks become more than 50% of the metagame, where there is actually no way to actually beat it. I kind of doubt that will be the case, but suppose,
Yeah,
then
hypothetically.
bans would be pretty much the only way of correcting anything, because yeah, you don't want to have a tournament where literally every player is playing the same deck with no way to beat it. But until we get to that point, I would prefer not to like run the ban hammer that quickly.
Yeah.
You also asked about rotation.
Yes.
This, I think, is not going to be an issue that we should look at in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
But I know in Magic the Gathering, one of the most played format standards that works on a 3-year rotation right now, where you can only use cards from the last 3 years. And if that were not in place, then there would have to be ever increasing power creep to like still make cards from new sets appealing.
Mm-hmm.
And the metagame could quickly grow stale. Or you get into like ever increasing power creep, which also has some downsides.
Yeah.
And rotation in various games has proven to be a good way of dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Lorcana's only out for 1 year now, so I don't think we will see that anytime soon.
No.
But maybe after, well, I don't know, 2 years or 3 years, I don't know what the right timing is. They might want to institute a different constructed format where you can only play cards from the last few years, and that way the metagame will keep fresh. They don't have to power creep everything unnecessarily, and the cards from the new set will, well, attract players and keep everything exciting.
I think set rotation is the way to go for sure. Like you say, help stop the ever-growing power creep. Like I played a bit of Pokemon TCG as well. And there are certain cards in that come to mind. Like most of the ball cards are like search your deck for a Pokemon, or a Pokemon that fits these certain descriptors. And instead of just making more and more powerful balls that do search for 2, search for 3, search for your whole deck, take it all, they just take that out of rotation, and then it either gets reprinted later on, or the same effect put onto a different name and a different artwork. So I think that helps us. Like one format will have the search your deck for a Pokemon card, and then we might not have it for a year, and we've got to come up with different ways of doing it, and the meta slows and speeds up, and it keeps it more interesting. And I think for Lorcana, I think the way to do it is our first 2 or 3 years is our first chapter. And then in 10, 20 years' time, people can go back and play Chapter 1 format if they want to, the same way in Yu-Gi-Oh! People still play Goat Control format. That was like the first year of the game. It's a very loved format from back in the day, which doesn't work for modern Yu-Gi-Oh! But people really enjoyed it. There was a lot of room for skill and just cards that people enjoyed. And I like the idea that in 5, 10 years' time, maybe there are traditional tournaments, or we called it traditional in Yu-Gi-Oh! But basically formats of cards that we can't play in standard anymore, but people can still go back and enjoy if they want to. So yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. Any other thoughts on rotation before we move on?
No, I think that would be a great vision of the future. Having those different formats that gives every run a different way of engaging with the game. But yeah, we'll see how they end up doing it.
We'll see what the future holds for Lorcana. So, going into set 4, which obviously set 4 came out, but you still had Lille to do, so you were very much still in a set 3 headspace, I imagine. But have you had much chance to look at set 4, play much set 4 at all?
I have looked through the set and played a few games. Where indeed I also saw the power of Bucky and Diablo in metagame. I think that and also what is it? Ruby Sapphire gained the Ice Block and Tisu and some new options there. In comparison, Steel Song did not get such great gains. There are a few new cards that I am or have tried out. There's Ariel, Sonic Warrior, and let's just call him Phil, no nonsense instructor, the hero card. These could fit into the deck because Ariel shifts and has an incredible amount of willpower, and Phil could support all the different heroes in the deck. Maybe that's a bit more for Lantern versions. They've been okay in the games I've played so far, though nothing that really blew me away so far. So that means that other decks did gain way more from set 4, and therefore, in comparison, Steel Song has gotten a little bit worse. I still enjoy the gameplay, but I haven't decided whether I will stick with this deck or maybe move towards some of the new hotness.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Is like you've already answered how Steel Amber adapts, so thank you for that. But I'm interested also knowing if you don't go down a Steel Song route, what is the deck that's caught your eye the most? If you were to load up a game now online, or someone was to come round with a bunch of decks, what would you reach for?
I might still reach for a Steel Song deck. Though now without Sleepy's Flute, because the 3-ink Aladdin is making waves, so items have become a bit more of a liability. Otherwise, I would probably go for Emerald Steel Discard, because that strategy with Bucky and Diablo and like all the synergies that we now have, some evasive beatdown as well. Seems very powerful overall, and might be the deck to beat if you enjoy more low to the ground strategies at this time.
There are two sorts of people. You either beat the squirrel or become the squirrel. There's no in between. Complaints about Bucky aside, if you're going into Chicago, which is happening right now or about to happen. At time of recording, Chicago, I think, is just starting or close to it. So yeah, like if you're going into this tournament, you want to perform well. There's obviously a lot up for grabs, not only just the pride of doing well in an Lorcana event, but we've seen the sort of prices that these prizes are worth, and it can be life-changing for a lot of people. So if you want to go and your priority is just to win, then I think Bucky is a perfectly fair choice. And I'll be really interested at the end of this weekend to see what that top cut looks like and how much of it is going to be dominated by Bucky, or if it's perhaps going to be a little healthier than we imagine, but only time will tell. Your Lorcana future, do you have any more events planned? Obviously you are qualified for the European Championships, which must be exciting, and although we don't know any details about that, I imagine you will do what you can to make sure that you are there.
I do intend to, yes. I'm waiting for details, but I look forward to seeing what that tournament is going to be like. I also grabbed a ticket for Bochum, the next challenge in Europe, so
excellent.
I'll be there, and we'll see after that.
Brilliant. We've talked about so much Lorcana. I've taken up so much of your time, so I want to just bring you to the last couple of questions. Obviously, the focus here quite often is 80% Lorcana, but we like a bit of Disney in general on this channel. Are you a Disney fan? And don't feel bad if you're not, because I've spoken to a couple of people who've said, you know what, I wasn't a Disney fan, but I got into Lorcana because I like to look at the game, and that has made me a bit more interested in Disney, and I've checked out a couple of the films. So where does your Disney fandom lie?
I like Disney. I watched a lot of movies when I was a kid, so that brings great memories. I have also enjoyed some Disney World vacations. I enjoy Disney and the whole thing of the game for sure.
Awesome. Do you have I'm going to ask you for three things if you've got them on: a favourite film, a favourite song, and a favourite character to finish us off.
So, favorite film would be The Lion King.
Nice
that
choice.
movie came out when I was a kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old, and I just really loved it. I enjoyed the nature and all the the storylines in the movie. So both a bit of nostalgia from my childhood, but also a great movie overall. As for favorite song, well, then
it can be from the Lion King if you want, or from something else. Completely up to you.
Yeah, I'm not so much into singing songs myself, but Hakuna Matata from The Lion King is one of the most memorable songs for me. That always puts a smile on my face.
It's a very feel-good song. Yeah, good choice. And a character, again, from The Lion King or something else? If you were going to pick your number one?
I'll probably go for something else. In the Netherlands, the Donald Duck magazine is actually one of the most popular magazines overall.
Okay.
I read it a lot, especially when I was a kid. It just has comics every week, some that also deal with the latest news or just things happening in the world. Sometimes custom made for the Netherlands. So in those comics, we often had characters like Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge and Giant Loose, who is called Willy Wortel in the Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
And that's like the crazy inventor. When I was a kid, I always liked the stories with him, and at some point even thought, well, if I grow into a large Frank, maybe I'll become an inventor like him. Well, things worked out a bit differently, but I'll go with Gyro Gearloose.
I think that's close enough. You have certainly put your mathematical skill set to a lot of knowledge and a lot of use, and helped a lot of people. So I think you achieved it, my friend. So love to hear that. Before we let you go, would you like to give any shout outs, any plugs for anything that you're involved in, any thank yous to anyone in particular, maybe any shout outs to anyone that you know is playing Chicago? Just take us home with anything that you'd like to say.
Well, I would like to give a shout out to Brennan Akendio, who I think is playing in Chicago. He helped me out a bit with the deck and is always like a great person to talk to with his insights into the game. I'd like to thank Rob de Haan from the Netherlands for setting up a very useful test session in the weekend prior, as well as everyone, the crew from Eindhoven, my home, where we drove to the venue together, had a great trip, and I mean it would have been great win or lose, but having them cheer for me and for each other all weekend made it into like all the more of a whole experience. So shout outs to everyone there. I shout out to Ultimate Guard for like having the best sleeves and deck boxes that I use throughout the tournament. TCG player, because that's where I often put down my articles on Lorcana. And if you would like to follow, I sometimes post on Twitter at Karsten_Frank. So those are a couple things to mention. But above all, just a shout out to the whole Lorcana community, which was awesome in Lille. A great time. And yeah, to Ravensburger for putting out. Okay, a game that is not going to replace my love Magic for me.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
But that I have had and will have a lot of fun with. Great to pick up for a whole lot of additional awesome experiences in the space.
That's awesome, and I'm sure I speak for a good amount of the community when I say we're very grateful to have you, and I look forward to watching the rest of your Lorcana career.
Thank you very much.
And that is it. It was such a pleasure to get to sit down and talk to Frank. Frank, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. We scheduled in for half an hour and I ended up taking up over an hour of the man's time. So really grateful for that. I found it really interesting to have that chat. Hopefully you guys at home did as well. All those links will be linked down below to check out Frank yourself. But other than that, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show your support and we'll see you soon.